Thank you for stopping by Ballistic Barbecue. On this video, I'm going to be dry aging a 19.5-pound beef brisket for 60 days. 60 days. Let's get going. I recently dry aged a 14.3-pound brisket, and I was so impressed with the results that I wanted to take it up couple notches to a much bigger brisket, and I am doing this big monster. Now, it's a lot bigger than it looks. It is basically crammed into this cryovac, so they more or less kind of rolled this brisket into this thing. So for the dry age process, I'm using the UMAi dry method, great method, and for a detailed video tutorial on dry aging a brisket using the UMAi dry method, I'll have a video linked right up here. I'll also have it linked down below. On this video, basically what I'm doing is I'm showing you the brisket before I dry age it. I'll show you the brisket after it's done dry aging, after the trim, and then we're going to take it outside and smoke this bad boy. So let me get this thing wrapped up in the dry age bag. And here's the brisket all sealed up in that special bag for drying made by UMAi. Next process is easy. It's going in my refrigerator on a rack, and it's going to stay in there for 60 days. Actually, you know, I didn't look at the calendar before I started this video, so it's at the very least will be 60 days. It may go a little over. You'll find out when this is done dry aging. I'll see you then. All right, I'm back. It is 63 days in. As I anticipated, because of the holidays, went a little bit over that 60-day period, but we're all good. I mean, I don't think that's going to be that big of a difference. Anyway, so here's what it looks like. As you can see, I got a really good bond on here. I'm very happy about that. And it's definitely reduced in size as anticipated. What I'm going to do now is just weigh it. And I'm just going to weigh it with the bag on. So obviously it's going to be a little heavier than if it were naked right now. And then I'm going to trim it, give it another weigh. All right, before this thing went into this UMAi dry bag, it weighed in at 19.47 pounds. Let's see what it weighs now after 63 days of dry aging in my refrigerator. All right, with the bag on, it weighs in at 13.15 pounds. So it lost, what, about a little over 6.5 pounds. Let's go ahead and get the bag off and I'll get it trimmed up. As you see, very tight bond. This is good. So check this out. I mean, this is funky looking. It kind of looks like, you know, petrified wood. Very, like I said, very dense, very slick, you know, kind of leathery. Let's go ahead and get this bark trimmed off here. So there's what it's looking like. As you can tell, it's a much more kind of a ruby red color than originally. So one thing I'm noticing that I noticed on that other brisket video I did, the dry aged brisket, is the fat texture definitely changes. It gets a lot more supple than your traditional, you know, brisket. Let's get this. I don't know if I showed you. There's what the fat cap side looks like. I'm just going to basically shave this. So the exterior of the fat gets this kind of a, I mean, it kind of feels like a crispy crust, like a wafer almost. It's kind of definitely a different feeling than what you would expect, you know, from fat. I'm just going to more or less shave this off. All right. So here's what this looks like. Let me get all this trimming cleaned up, and then we'll go ahead and weigh this thing. And here we go. And it's weighing in at 10.92 pounds. So it's a good 8.5 pounds lighter than the original weight of 19.47 pounds. One thing I did notice from that 30-day dry aged brisket that I cooked is that it didn't shrink as much while cooking. So I'm expecting the same behavior here. And the last thing I'll do before I slice the cooked brisket up is I'm going to weigh it to see how much it did lose in the pit. So this is going in the fridge. I'm going to be cooking this thing up tomorrow. See you then. To keep this little experiment consistent with my last dry aged brisket cook, I'm going to be using the Lone Star Grill's offset vertical again. I have it preheating right now. I'm going to be running the pit at 250, so I'm doing more of a traditional kind of cook, and I will not be wrapping it. I didn't wrap the last one. We will not be wrapping this. I'm going to go ahead and season it. Definitely going to need a binder on this because the surface of this meat is a lot drier than your average brisket. And what I'm going to use on this cook, I use this on my Christmas prime rib that I cooked, is a marinade. This is Head Country's all-purpose marinade, great stuff. Just enough to help this rub stick, but this has a really nice flavor to it. So as far as seasoning is concerned, I'm using 2 rubs. I'm using Rio Grande's beef rub. This is their Monterey steak rub. Then I'll be using their chicken bling, this is their chicken rub. Reading the ingredients, it looks like a really good, just all-purpose rub. It's got a nice kind of a red color too, which I like. All right, I'm going to let this kind of rest, sweat through the rub while my pit heats up. I'll meet you guys outside. All right, pit's burning at 250, and like the last dry aged brisket I did, I am burning hickory wood. Let's get this thing loaded in there. And we are cooking. I will be inserting a meat thermometer. I'll be doing that in just a few minutes. I'm cooking this brisket until it's done, so I'm going more off of tenderness rather than temps, but I think it's kind of neat to know for the dry aged brisket, just the different stages. And on any brisket, especially if you're going to wrap, you know, when you're in the stall, to know when you're in the stall is very important. Other than that, I'm just gonna let it cook right now. If I see that that surface area is getting a little dry, I'm going to spritz it. I'm going to use just a little bit of Jack Daniels and water just to keep it moist, help develop that bark. Other than that, I'll see you at the next stage, I guess. All right, we are 8 hours, 45 minutes in. We are done. This one finished at 190 degrees. Again, reminder, my 30-day brisket, which was a much smaller brisket, finished at 187, so pretty similar. It's looking good. But it is, again, probe tender. Just beautiful. So looking at the size of this brisket, it really didn't shrink that much. It honestly looks like I would expect to see from a 19.5 pound brisket that I had trimmed and put on the pit for a long cook. Because usually you're looking at 40 to 50% of loss just in the cooking process alone. But it's pretty cool, man. I mean, this is a low and slow cook, unwrapped, under 9 hours for what was a 19.5 pound brisket. Again, if it's yielding the same as a traditional cook without the dry age process, I'm pleased with that. The rubber hits the road when we try it though. What I'm going to do now is pull it from the pit, wrap it, foil, and I'll put it in the cooler with some towels to let it rest a little bit, and then meet you guys inside the kitchen. One more thing I almost forgot to mention, like the 30-day brisket, the 60-day brisket never stalled. There was 0 stalls. I started basically recording the temperature changes right when it hit 137 degrees, and it flew right on through to 190 when it was probe tender. So 0 stalls, pretty cool. All right, it's all rested up. There's what it looks like, looks pretty good. Let's weigh this. All right, now this tray is the same tray as the black tray. It's just red. So I'm gonna zero out the scale with this thing on it. Let's weigh this. Okay, so it's 8.5 pounds, done, 8.5 pounds. So obviously that's over 50% from that original 19.47. But when you trim a brisket, after the trim, it's going to lose weight anyway. So it's not that much lighter than I guess a normal 19.5 pound brisket would be. Let's slice this thing up. Feels so tender. Juicy, very juicy. Very juicy, very tender. This is what I was hoping to see. Wow, look at that. This thing is flowing. Decent smoke ring there. It's tender. What I wish I had done is probably left it on a little bit longer, like maybe another 5 degrees more. I think it'd be even more tender than it is because it's holding up. Wow. So I was honestly worried that 60 days would be too much, that it would be a little bit funky after 60 days, but it's not. I don't think I'd go any further. Honestly, I think, so I've done 30, now 60, 63. I think what I want to do is a 45. Rubs killer. Wow, why am I wiping my gloves? Anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I'm going to be doing some more UMAi videos. I really love that product and I have fun using it. So think about it. This is a choice brisket. I think prime would have been even better. I know it would have, just because of my last brisket I did was prime. Very, very tender. And you're, again, using a product that's taking a less expensive meat and elevating it into the value is crazy. I mean, to buy something like this at a butcher shop would not be cheap. I guarantee you that. Anyway, it's my dinner time. I'm going to eat this for dinner. Thanks for stopping by. Keep those requests coming in. And again, there's going to be more UMAi. I had a lot of questions about the dry age bags, and I am going to do a pretty detailed video, I guess, on the whole process. See you on the next video, guys. Cheers.